What do we need it for?
Oh, I hit a button. I actually like when I hit
Um,
Byron
like,
buttons.
we
Like,
need it for what?
If you are not getting educated about local and national market conditions in real estate, whether you're in title, insurance, mortgage, financial advising, or obviously a real estate agent, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers Podcast. I'm Tom Toole, and Byron Lazine and Lisa Chinatti have graced us with their presence again. And kind of a slow week, although our friend, who we're going to get on the show, I've been working on this for a while, Logan Mohtashami from Housing Wire, had an article that dropped yesterday, which I tend to agree with, that the savagely unhealthy housing market is back. So, what does that even mean? And one of the critical data lines that he tracks is days on market. And when that breaks under 30, Logan believes it's a dangerous sign. And then when we get into the teens or lower, it's red alert. So, what do you two think about this? Are you seeing it in your marketplaces? Are we back to a savagely unhealthy housing inventory as of June 2023?
And is this the way you want to explain that terminology that Logan uses to consumers if you're advising consumers? I don't think you want to use the word savagely unhealthy, Lisa, do you?
nope, I don't think that one comes into play.
Agreed.
So what's your takeaway first? Since you let me go first last week, Lisa, I'm going to let you go first this week.
I appreciate that. It's unusual for you to be so kind, but so I kind of agree. I think, one of the things that we've been talking about and kind of looking at is what are days on market? How competitive is it? And again, I think one part is understanding how does your local market how does that compare to the national market, right? Locally, we are a very unbalanced market, very tipped towards the seller side. It was fascinating, not kind of totally related, but I was pulling some stats for a project that I was working on and comparing some of our biggest markets and sales from last year with where year to date units were, and kind of expecting that, at this point we would be at about, what do we always expect? Like 40% of our sales are done so far year to date in some of these big markets. And looking at it, we were at 25 to 30% on the high end in most of our markets. Days on market is in some of these markets single digits. So I know in the news article, they were talking about that really red zone for that unhealthy market being when we got to double digits, teenage numbers, right? Like stuff in the teens. But we're actually in some of our markets seeing less than a week again, which is bananas to think about. Prices still increasing, mortgage rates holding steady, but the demand is still insane. It's not balanced. It's not. It doesn't align.
When you say the demand is insane, though, Lisa, I don't agree that it's insane. I think it's insane for the level of inventory we have. Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, is it the same? The interesting thing, and I think one of the things that we don't talk about enough is demand is high, and the competitive nature of the market is similar to what we saw 2021 and early parts of 2022, but it's similar in the frenzy, not similar in the volume of demand, right? There are
Yeah.
definitely fewer buyers in the market, but the ratio, maybe that's the best word to describe it, the ratio of buyers to listings is maybe about the same, or maybe more buyers per listing than we were seeing in 21 and 22.
And the ratio to buyers to affordable listings is completely outweighed. And
It, yeah.
that's the struggle in this market is that, NAR just reported for May that 28% of buyers in May were first-time home buyers. Well, they're competing with the largest buyer demographic of baby boomers. They're all competing
Mm-hmm.
for the same type of home, this affordable housing option, or the starter home housing option. And there's just not enough of that. I was in the cigar lounge here in Connecticut the other day, and I'm doing some email, and there's a guy, he used to work IBM for years, a business guy, and he's doing some work on his laptop, and we start talking. He starts talking about the real estate market with me, And he says, "Hey, what do you think about, the Connecticut government just passed this earlier in the year, this big benefit for first-time home buyers, right? To incentivize people at a certain income level to, basically save some money off of their first-time home buyer." He's a big supporter of big government. So I said, "Listen, I think it's not going to work. Just like all of these incentives across the country to incentivize the first time home buyer, it's great for votes and great for people like you who are half paying attention to think that your government's doing something really special for the people out there. They continue to stimulate the bottom where that buyer, that first time home buyer who might save a few $1,000 on closing costs, even if it's 10,000, doesn't matter because they're not winning the house. When you're going up against 10 or 15 offers, you're not winning the house on one of those special, loan arrangements or, what they're taking the cash, they're taking the offer that can drop its inspections, and they're moving forward. So until we start to stimulate the top and create an abundance of inventory at an affordable level, you're not going to solve the savagely unhealthy market that Logan Motoshami has coined here the last 18 months.
So that's a really great point, Byron, because we saw something anecdotally here where there was a very large farm that got sold, literally down the street from my office. It was about 300 acres. M. Night Shyamalan buys it, right? He takes 90 acres, and instead of selling it to a developer, he sold it to a conservation trust that's adjacent. And this would have been a perfect opportunity to build a townhome community, right? Put a lot of housing in there, maybe even some smaller single family homes. But when this stuff continues to happen, and we've talked about the zoning requirements before that are jamming people up, and our office is in a little bit of a more rural location. There's no incentive for him to flip that to a builder. There's no incentive for him to maybe build something that would make sense for the community and bring more tax revenue in long term. So he said, "Hey, you know what? I'm selling it to the Conservation Trust." And when that stuff continues to happen, I'm sure you're seeing that in Massachusetts, Lisa, and New Hampshire. I'm sure you're seeing that in Connecticut.
Of course.
It happens all the time. And you know what would have been really great? How about, and this, like, Lisa, you've been to my office. There's not a whole lot of commercial space around there, right? You know what people probably would have really liked? A maybe mixed use facility with a couple restaurants in there that doesn't affect the neighboring homes at all, but it's a place to go, and it stimulates people wanting to move there and people buying. And that's the thing. There's no incentive for him to do that. So he said, "Hey, I'm going to take the tax write off of selling it to the Conservation Trust versus let's do some development here." And that's the whole reason this was purchased. Now, he may have different reasoning behind it, but that's one example of something that happens constantly over and over and over again. There's no incentive there.
It happens all the time in Connecticut. And I saw an argument recently where it's like, hey, there's still plenty of land in Connecticut, but there's a lot of it that's been sold to, conservative, so where you can't develop it. Conservations, where you can't develop it. The number I just saw the other day for Connecticut was they're only adding 2,000 units a year for new construction. I mean,
That's crazy.
that
Wow.
basically only replaces stuff that's falling down. The town that I'm sitting in right now, if I go down to the town green, you're going to drive by, 30, 40, 50, 60 homes that were built in 1700. That's like, when Christopher Columbus came over, right? When did he come over?
1492, pal.
1492. Well, it's pretty close in my eyes.
1492, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Come
people
on.
People were riding horses when these houses were built. It's insane. So 2,000 units is not enough.
Well, and that's what contributes to this, right? We're seeing days on market come down. We talked about the average price of new construction. In our market, it's between $850 and $1.2 million in the suburban counties outside Philadelphia. That's the average of new construction that's available. And when we saw 797 homes come to the market this past week with new, coming soon, and back to active properties in the 3-county area in the city of Philadelphia. We've seen days on market. Now we're at 17 to 18 days in the suburbs, down from 25 to 26. It may not sound like a lot when it's only a week, but you're talking about almost a third decline in how fast homes are selling. Now the other point of this, though, and you guys mentioned there's more buyer per house. We've seen month supply of inventory increase, and that's a big deal because the homes are it's still there's more out there than there was this time last year, even though there's less homes selling. We went from a 2.7 month supply of inventory in our marketplace this year compared to 2 months even last year through the month of May. So savagely unhealthy. If you're a real estate agent, just do yourself a favor. That's like saying there's no inventory or the market's crazy. Just remove that language from your vocabulary, or you're going to scare off a lot of people. But know what the supply is. Know what the month supply of inventory is, because that it paints a different picture. Because it's a numbers game a little bit. So I'm not saying there's a ton of inventory. There's just maybe a little more to choose from because there's less buyers, but there's inventory is still historically low. And it's kind of like when rates were at 5 and people were like, oh, they're so high. Well, historically, that's very low. So you have to look at this unicorn 2020 to 2022 market as an outlier. And that's language I would be using if I was a knowledge broker is, hey, the last 2 years were an outlier. Here's what normally happens. Let's go back in the time machine and jump in the DeLorean to 2018, 2019, and talk about numbers that matter, like month inventory of supply, because that's going to help buyers at least understand what's going on. And you're not talking in jargon. You're giving them real information that shows, look, it's still tough. Don't get me wrong. And you have to kind of empathize with them as well. But knowing that data is going to make a huge difference.
Logan said in his piece, and I tend to agree with him, not much can be done here. Mortgage rates are near 7%. And as long as they sit around the 7% level, we're going to be dealing with this because people aren't selling. So, we need to see a 30-year fix get to 6 or under. Mortgage Banker Association reported this week that they believe that will end the year at 5.8. That's a really good sign for 2024.
If they get there,
if they get there, I'm not convinced that they will either. But I'm just saying,
coin flip at best. I agree.
If we go into 2024 in the high 5s, you're going to have a significantly better 2024 real estate market when it comes to health than you do in 2023. I'm not convinced either, Lisa, but I'm at least looking for some positive tea leaves here. Flip your little, what do you got there? Your little time capsule there.
It's called an hourglass.
I mean, by the time that sand gets in here, we might be at 8% on the 30-year fix. I get it. The signs are not great, but by the way, 8% would be catastrophic for this market because we've got enough data on what 7% looks like. We have enough data on 7%. 8%, the people that say, well, there used to be 12% interest rates, it would completely crush the activity in this market. Zillow reports that if we get to 8% on the 30-year fix, we'll go from 4.3 million seasonally adjusted existing home sales down to 3.3 million. We lose a million like that. You get anywhere close to double digits, you're not going to see anything happen.
Ugh. That's all I'll say to that.
So I'm rooting for Mortgage Banker Association to be right. Get under 6 million here, or get under 6%.
I don't think it does this year. I don't think we hit 10. I don't think we hit double digits, but I think everybody needs to be realistic that I think the reality that we get under 6 is think about it. We're basically in July, right? So, and we know we've already been prepped for a rate increase from the feds in July. I don't see much changing because then that leaves you what? August, September, October, November, 4 months.
Yeah, we're running out of time.
That's my point. If we were having this conversation in March, then maybe there's a little bit of possibility to it. I just think it's so late in the year to say that as we roll into 2024, that's going to be possible.
For an agent right now that, we've got 6 months ahead of us and we're going to continue. The spring's over basically. Okay. So we're into summer now. And so you're not going to, you can't count on a market like you just saw the last 3 or 4 months in terms of demand. You can count for less demand over the next 6 months. Stop me if you disagree, but I would say any agent right now has got to account for less demand and start to really dig through their database and be proficient on the way they're engaging with everybody to make sure that they can capture what's going to be available for them in their market, because there's not just going to be that spring buyer out there. There's going to be the buyer or the seller that need to make a move for a specific reason, and you need to uncover who they are in your database and get connected with them quickly. because I think demand's going down over the next 6 months.
So I've got an internal stat on this that we just charted. So we worked with our inside sales team. Obviously, we're trying to set appointments, meet with people. The number of conversations over the last 30 days compared to the month of April increased by 4. So 4 more conversations for them to set an appointment. They were going from 14 to 18, and that was the average. So that's an indicator right there. I mean, you're looking at, all right, I got to have 4 more conversations. Most agents don't even have 4 conversations in a day. The knowledge brokers do, but some of these, you know what the numbers are. And so if that's happening now, and I do see there's an opportunity to do business in the second half of the year for the people that are ready to dig in, Byron, like you said, have those conversations, work their database, get to that 8, 9, 10 plus attempts on contact, all the things that work. You can still sell homes the second half of this year, but you're not going to be falling into those spring buyers, like you said. And
that number you just said, 14 to 18, I hope that hit everybody. 14 to 18 now conversations is what you're tracking internally. We know it's double-digit conversations on the macro across. I had an agent said to me, he's looking at a for sale by owner that just listed with an agent on the active market. It was like $1 million listing. He's like, I can't believe it. I called these people like 4 times. I'm like, you were 40% of the way there. Why'd you stop? If you called them 10 times, you would have had an opportunity to maybe convert on a listing appointment. He's like, well, they never picked up once. They never called me back. They're busy. They're a for sale by owner for a reason. I mean, not everything's working upstairs. You got to call them multiple times.
And remember, the typical is 8 to 12, right? We know that in a normal market for any kind of sale, whether it's in real estate or out of real estate, the normal is 8 to 12 touches. And we know the average salesperson gives up at about 2 to 4. Actually,
2.7 is the NAR stat. That's the average amount of time an agent follows up.
Right. So great book. Go for no.
Oh, we have our book draft. We have our book draft coming up before we end the show. So if you were listening last week, we're going to do a book draft. Myself, Lisa, Tom, top 6 books for real estate agents. We're going to go one by one, have a 2-round draft. So stay with us for that, because that's coming up here. What else do we want to hit?
I've got an interesting way to set the draft up. I'm gonna take the lead on that. I've got it all prepped here for you guys. Surprise draft order.
All right. What else do we want to hit before we get into the draft?
So, Byron, you talked about, we talked about inventory at length. I don't think we need to go further anymore. Builder confidence all of a sudden is positive, right? So builder confidence in the market for newly built single family homes in June rose 5 points to 55, according to the National Association of Home Builders. That was released on the 19th, just a couple days ago. And that's the 6th straight month that builder confidence has increased. And it's the first time that sentiment levels have surpassed the midpoint of 50 since a year ago, July of 2022. I'm clear these two topics are related here. Builders are now maybe cautiously optimistic about market conditions given the low levels of existing inventory and hopefully some improvement in supply chain. What are you seeing with new construction? I mean, is that an opportunity for folks? I mean, I know at our team, we've put more new construction under contract the past 6 months than I've seen historically. And I'm clear it's one, because that's what's available. 2, they're in their like further out markets, right? So if you go from where we are in Philadelphia, you kind of go west and north. You go south, you're in the Delaware and Maryland, but it's going west towards like Lancaster, the middle of the state. That's where we've seen a lot of these developments spring up. And I'm seeing buyers they're chasing the house in some cases. They're not chasing the neighborhood, which a lot of us might be used to. They just want a new home. I need a bigger place. I want to have enough space for my family. And that's been the trend we've seen. What are you two saying?
So in this low inventory environment that we're in, 1 out of 4 homes are new construction. So builders make up 25%. They're controlling 25% of the active inventory today. And they're not overbuilt like they were in, 2005, 6, and 7. So they're at a, there's still, a huge gap in the amount of inventory we need. So they're in a power position. They also have the flexibility in a lot of these markets, that they have big communities. Think about the Southeast, think about Texas, where in these national home builders, which by the way, Pulte and some of these other national home builders just this week hit all-time high on their stock. But they have the ability to go in there and put a below mortgage rate for the buyer. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they can buy down the rate if they lend with them. And so for a buyer, it's like, wow, I'm getting inventory that doesn't exist in the existing home sales sector. I'm getting a lower mortgage rate, and I'm getting a couple of, add-ons in some locations from that builder. It becomes a no-brainer. Now, they're going to have to figure out how to sell some of this inventory in the higher price points, because the average price right now, sales price for new construction is 550,000, and they are sitting over 7 months of inventory when you just look at new construction, which is technically a buyer's market. It's very different from the existing home sale market. It's because that price point is higher than the starter home price point. So they've got that to deal with. But overall, their confidence is up because they're in a power position because of how weak the inventory is on the existing home side.
So we know in Pennsylvania, Byron, the average price for new construction, Tom, you said it's 1112, right?
Well, it depends on the county. So it's 857, 922, and 1.24 million in Chester, Delaware, and Montgomery counties, respectively. So there's a range there for sure. But our median sale price is 426. So it doesn't even matter because it's so much higher. I mean, the buyer that they're making the average income, which is a little less than $100,000 a year, they're getting squeezed out.
Yeah. How about you, Byron? Do you know the average price for new construction in Connecticut right now?
I don't. All I know is that number, we're only adding 2,000. It's going to be significantly higher than the average median price. Just off, I don't have the number, but just off of what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's bananas. I actually just pulled it for Massachusetts. I didn't dig into New Hampshire. Massachusetts, the average price for new construction single family is above 1.5 million.
Whew.
Right? The average price for a new construction condo is above a million.
Whew.
The heck? Like that, it's not affordable, like at all. Like even with our higher, typical wage, I think compared to both of your markets, right? Because we have Boston, which
Yep.
the metro, which brings a higher
Mm-hmm.
average income. When you still look at the average price for new construction single family tops $1.5 million. That's mind blowing to me. I actually had never pulled that data till just now.
Yeah, it's very costly to build, and this is why I keep talking about stop stimulating the bottom. Stop giving the first-time home buyer competing with 15 offers, $5,000 off their closing costs, and thinking that that's gonna, help put more people into home ownership. There's 65.7% home ownership rate right now. It's the same as it was last year. Okay, this doesn't go up until you can get more inventory at 350,000 and below across the country to, to hit the market. It just doesn't happen. It's impossible.
Yeah, it's the cause I'm passionate about. You all know that affordable housing and, looking at zoning laws and how do we accomplish it. The topic about the conservation land it's a hot button, right? Because I do believe that we need some protected space and conservation land, and we need to balance that land and space with.
For what? What do we need it for?
Oh, I hit a button. I actually like when I hit Byron
Like,
buttons.
we need it for what? So like people that want to save the salamanders can like be all excited and you don't
Well,
piss them off.
I mean, yes. I mean, that's the reality, right? Is that open space does protect some of our wildlife, which is an important part of our ecosystem. And I'm a little bit crunchy here. This is going to be my New England coming out.
Yeah, there we
But
go.
also,
Eat a granola bar.
I'm going to.
Isn't
I'm going to go
Connecticut in
find.
New England, by the way? Right?
Yeah.
Am I okay? Just want to make
Well,
sure.
but he lives in Florida, so like he's not really like New England. But the other part of it, right? I do spend half my time living in downtown Boston, and what I'll tell you is that like the amount of people that gravitate to the parks or even being able to do things like have a garden, like I think at some level you two kind of take it for granted that you could, if you wanted, not that either one of you is going to, but you could plant a garden and give your kids that experience, right? Just by virtue of opening your back door. Those that are in highly urban areas don't necessarily have that option. And the open space, I do feel, is important at some level.
Okay, there's a difference between having a nice park in a city and having some greenery in the city, and then taking thousands of acres
Yes.
and just saying we're never going to be able to develop. It happens over here, part of Connecticut I'm in right now all the time. So there's like these big chunks of land. People are making way more than market value. I don't know where this money's coming from, by the way. Where does this money come from where they can go and sell a piece of land that they're getting well above market value to sell to these groups and never develop it? Where does the money come from?
You pay taxes, right, Byron? Because I'm pretty sure that's. I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, you have M. Night Shyamalan, who's he's the Sixth Sense and all these movies. He's flipping the land to the local conservation trust. I mean, this is what happens, right? And I think to Lisa's point, I think there is some value in having some open space. The flip side is though, it's how much open space do you need? Because if you want to grow these communities and stimulate the economy and have more jobs come there, I mean, you can't have it both ways. There's obviously a
I
middle ground
get you.
here, and
Yep.
it's what I find is that where I live versus where my office is versus the city of Philadelphia are three very different places, and they're all within 45 minutes of each other. And some counties and some local governments have a much different stance on this than others. And it's when you have this, it's literally community by community choices that are made, and the old boys and old girls network that are making these decisions. I mean, you see these people running these conservation trusts. Half the time, it looks like they're next to the crypt keeper on Tales from the Crypt, and they're just sitting around waiting for this stuff to happen. So, if you want to really solve this affordability issue, there's got to be a change in the government laws and the zoning restrictions, because that's the fundamental problem in a lot of these places. My father did 4,000 new construction units, right? And he dealt with this crap all the time. And this was back in the 80s and 90s when they were open to developing. Now we're in this other spot. I mean, we have literally no new construction that comes to the market. And it's like old golf courses that get developed instead of these trusts and these other things.
It's some of these like way off the beaten path communities that are going to have to make some dramatic decisions of being a little bit different. Like if you look at Western Massachusetts, for anybody that's been to Massachusetts, Western Massachusetts and the area Lisa operates in, and she's talking about, Boston and surrounding areas of Boston are very different places.
Yep.
That's factual. That's factual.
No different where I live.
And-
It's at least it's been to my office. You guys have been to my house. You've been to Philly. It's like 3 different places, all in 45 minutes.
And here's the numbers. This was in Bloomberg this morning. Okay, I talked about it on the hot sheet. Office availability rate in selected U.S. downtowns. San Francisco's almost 33%. Houston's almost 33%. Atlanta's over 31%. Los Angeles is 30%. Chicago's over 26%. Boston, by the way, is over 17% and rising.
Mm-hmm.
These office buildings in these cities are due to have $1.4 trillion in the next year and a half by the end of 24 on their loans, on refinancing. You're seeing people in San Francisco, because they're the leader of the pack here, walk away from their office buildings. This is, Tom, Philadelphia is on the list of 22%.
I'm sure it is.
This is going to continue to happen. This, my friends, is the closest thing to any real estate great financial crisis that you could see. You had Blackstone recently walk away from paying their mortgage. They've got more money than anybody because they said, you know what, we can put our money to use in better places than these office buildings. And so this is the only place that you can, to Lisa's point, you can only build up. There's not enough green space in Boston. These cities, some of them they're going to need to change. You've got suburbs area around the cities that don't want to change. And then you've got places like Western Mass where nothing happens. People are working from everywhere now. So the communities that lead and say, hey, we're going to change, take away the regulation, let some affordable housing happen here, might be the communities of the future. And they might be, not where you expect them to be.
Well, you bring up a really great point there. I've got a couple sources at a few high up large financial institutions that they can't get their people back to work, right? And these people are making New York City or Boston or Philadelphia salaries, and they've moved to these remote locations because they want to be out in open space. And that's one challenge. And then the second challenge is when they do want to come into the office, like it's a whole different issue. They don't they wouldn't let them come back in. They have all these policies. And then you've got a lot of cities have an additional city wage tax when you work in the city. I don't know if Boston's like this. In
Not yet.
Philadelphia, it's just under 4%. So
New
you're
York
making any
City.
kind of money, right? Yeah, New York City's whatever. I mean, they all have them, right? You're making any kind of money. You don't want to live there because you can pay half by just moving outside and get more space. Like this, and then they have really low property taxes. There's all these screwed up laws that are causing a lot of this to happen, and that's where fundamentally it starts. Go ahead, Byron.
Those vacancy rates that I just read off, those are the vacancies on the leases. Those are going up over the next 2 years, 5 years, whatever. Castle Systems, who's a property management company, their data shows that the 10 largest metro areas nationwide averaged a shade under 50%. So 49.7% of workers are actually back physically in the offices on any given day. So you have vacancies now, you know, in like, let's just take San Francisco. Over 30% of the offices are vacant, no lease on them. So then let's call it the 65 to 70% of offices that are actually leased out. Only 50%, 49.7% on average, are even showing up in those offices. So as those leases keep coming due, it's like, geez, 1 out of 2 of my employees are showing up here or less. I'm just going to let this thing roll. I'm not going to renew this lease. Why am I going to renew this lease? And you're going to keep seeing this. This is going to be a long-term problem. It's not just because, you know, Elon believes people should work from the office. It doesn't mean every company's adopting it, because they're not. They're clearly not. Most of them are going to a hybrid approach or complete work from home approach. You know, for everybody that thought this was going to snap back after the pandemic, it just hasn't. And New York City, by the way, 20% of their revenue is property taxes from the office buildings. That's not even the other tax that you're talking about, Tom, the if you live in the city, work in the city tax on top of the state income tax. So you got a big tax issue. San Francisco has $780 million deficit coming the next 2 years because of this commercial crisis.
It's wild. I mean, and even, you know, as a real estate agent, we've got to pay taxes on the homes that we sell on the commissions in the city of Philadelphia. Like, that's how granular this gets. So it's something that they almost, these laws kind of tend to push people out. And I mean, you think about it, like, you start making some money, you get married, and you have a choice to make. Am I going to upgrade and continue to live in the city, or am I going to go to the suburbs? And when you can get a 4% raise by moving and get more space, and you think about it becomes an easier decision. So you're stimulating not the top, Byron, to your point. It's all about how do we get these people that actually control the assets to let things go. And I think that's where that's where government misses the mark in a lot of cases.
Lisa, anything to add to that, or you preparing for your draft? Draft pick?
I'm books.
All right.
All right. Lisa's on books. Let's go to books.
Yeah.
All right. So the book draft.
This will hopefully help the mindset of after all the great news.
Well, look, you read some books, you get better, right? I think Mark Cuban said that he reads books constantly every day, because you get one idea from it that you wouldn't have gotten from listening to a podcast or something else. It can change the way you do things. So I'm a big fan of the audiobook. I don't know about you guys. I read it about a 3rd grade level, so it helps to digest the content a little faster. So what I did here, I went to a list randomizer, and I would suggest a snake draft format. So whoever gets pick 1, 2, 3, and then 3 and 4 go back to back, and we'll go top 6. And then what I would also love, and this is a bonus, we talked about books for real estate agents. I would also love to throw in a leadership book, if you have that, for a surprise 3rd pick. And if you guys are up for that. But let's start with the first 2 rounds. I'm going to hit the randomizer here so you can see it.
But so the first 6 books here, just to be clear, so we're going to go top 6 books for real estate agents, and then we're going to do a bonus 3 for leadership.
Yes.
Okay, I'm clear on that. I just want to make sure everybody's clear.
All right. So
you're picking the draft order.
I'm going to a list randomizer right now, and we're going to put in LBT. We could do BLT, actually, if you guys are hungry for lunch. And Let's randomize
I
this.
actually am hungry for lunch.
Okay, well, it's 10:45. I mean, when you get up early, that happens. All right,
And I'm
first
on a
pick goes
diet.
to Lisa, second pick to Byron, and third pick to myself. So, what do you guys got? Let's go. Snake order.
All right. So, real estate agent book, one of my first. Oh, gosh. All right. I'm going to give you versatile selling, which I know I brought up last week, but I think that knowing personality types, the keywords, and how it impacts sales is one of the biggest skill sets that a real estate agent should have.
All right, I'm torn and I'm conflicted, and I have about 4 books I want to fit into 2. But the first book I read when I got into the industry, and it's not the book that I buy all of my agents, surprisingly, which, that should be the pick. Actually, you know what? I'll save this one for my second pick because I don't think I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna do the one that I buy for every agent when they onboard. It's Miracle Morning for real estate agents.
It's a
I
good one.
think it's such a hard business that if you don't have the mindset right, you're going to be in that 87% that fail. I would attach a cousin book to that called Tribe of Millionaires. They're very similar. It's kind of like the updated
Dude, you
version of
can't
that.
take
I'd
2
say you just took
books.
2.
It,
This
you,
is
All right,
what the
my
hell?
pick is Miracle Morning. There you go. For real estate agents specifically.
that was on my list. Great book. We give that to everyone that joins the team
We
too.
do too.
And my mentor John Collins, he's I think you guys might have met him. He did a talk for our team yesterday, and he basically said like, "Hey, if you're not getting up early, you're not going to succeed in this business." And he's been doing it for 30 years and sells 70 to 80 homes a year. So I find that to be a great one, Byron. So I'm going to go 2 back to back here. The first one is the book that changed my career. You can't even buy this anymore. Actually, you can. I think it's $600 on Amazon. It is Real Estate by Mike, written by Mike Ferry, which is I pick up this book. It's basically a pamphlet. I don't know who wrote it. I mean, it might have been like a WordPress site or something. And it says, here's what you want to do to be successful. And I didn't even get through the whole book when I read it. It said, call your sphere. And this is in 2008. And I said, great. Well, my sphere's not buying anything. People are losing their jobs. And he said, and then it was expired listings for sale by owners. And I put the book down and I started doing it. You guys got to know me through expired listings. That's been one of my things that really drove my business. So if you can find the book, good luck. But it's I think it's $600 on Amazon right now is the price for this thing. It's out of print. The second one I have, a little more tactical. And we also give this book to everyone that joins our team. Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents by Phil Jones, Jimmy Mackin, and Chris Smith. I'm a big script guy. I find that NLP confuses people if you don't really study it. Phil and Jimmy and Chris broke it down in easy ways to use strategies that are going to take the pressure out of having difficult conversations for people. And I think that skill is more important than ever right now in 2023. So those are my 2 books for real estate agents. Real Estate by Mike and Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents.
Well, I love you gave a book that nobody can get. I mean,
well, you know what? That's how I mean, it's I can pick 3 and cheat like you did, Byron, if you want me to. I mean,
I only have 1 on the board. Miracle Morning. That's all I got on the board apparently. Go ahead, Lisa.
No, you're
up.
up.
Oh, it's back to me.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
good.
get to go.
I'm so torn. I'm gonna go. There's a book sitting next to me that it's a new book, and I want to pick this book, and I'm gonna pick this book because I'll save the other book for my leadership one. This book right here, The Agent's Edge. It's Jordan Cohen's new book. It is he's the #1 Remax agent worldwide.
For now.
You're right. Tom might be at some point. Anyways,
I'm kidding, Jordan. I'm kidding.
He's got a lot of big clients. Sylvester Stallone and Kobe Bryant was a client. Kobe's family. All these big LA people. Anyways, he goes through from how he started. $400,000 homes, and then the same principles applying on these $1 million plus homes, these multi-million-dollar homes, on how to win listing appointments. It is such a, he could have wrote this book 10 years ago or 10 years forward, and these principles are going to be relatable if you want to actually win listings, if you're going to be on the appointment and convert. Right now, there's this thought process that agents have that if they send out mail and basically just lick envelopes and send it in the mail, that they're going to get 10 listings under their name. Nobody's going to call you off of a postcard and be like, wow, you have now won the listing. And what he talks about in this book is being able to get in front of people and win listing appointments, how to generate them, how to win them, how to take them down. And I don't care how many leads anybody dumps on agents, listing leads. If they're not able to convert at the listing appointment, it doesn't matter. And Jordan has some really tried and true principles in there, some things that even made me say, I've been on a lot of listing appointments. Wow. That's something I should be coaching differently. That's something I should be thinking about differently. So it's The Agent's Edge. It just came out. It's fantastic.
All right. I haven't read that one. I'm going to add it to my list.
I'm going to get that. Yeah, that good. Well, Jordan should give you a commission for that.
I know he should. I know I should get Jordan, give me an affiliate link or something.
All right. So I get the last book for real estate agents. Mine would be Never Split the Difference. I think that negotiation is so important. I think it is a skill that most of us don't practice enough, and it makes or breaks sales and relationships across the board.
That's right. I love that.
Excellent book.
Great book. All right, so we're gonna do the leadership one, right? We'll go back, snake back the other way. Lisa, me, and you.
Yeah, that works.
All right. Lisa, what do you got for leadership book?
Okay, am I getting just one book for leadership, or
we could do a double round, whatever you guys want to do.
And then let's wrap it up with the worst real estate book. I have a good one for that too.
So thinking about leadership, I'm going from the mentality of the person who's running a team or a brokerage or a business of some sort. I'm going with 5 dysfunctions of a team. It's a quick, easy read, and is so. It was one of the first ones that was game changing for me in my mentality of how I started this journey.
All right, so I'm going to go with the book that I was torn with for The Agent, because it's one of the first books I read as an agent, but it's, whether you're an agent or a leader, this one fits right into the leadership category as well. So I think it's something we've all read. If you haven't read it, it's a must read. How to Win Friends and Influence Others. Absolutely a must as you're starting your business or sales career to read that book. And every leader should probably even refresh on that every couple of years.
Great books. Actually stole a couple of mine. So pick one that I have here for leadership will be Think and Grow Rich. This is, and I think this applies for any sort of business, right? Where you're working on yourself, you're trying to get better. I know you guys because of that book, and we have this kind of relationship. Josh Rubin and I, who's a friend of all of ours, read it, and it was after Summit one year, and he said, hey, let's start a mastermind group, just like Think and Grow Rich. And that's legitimately changed the trajectory of me as a leader, and I think all of us in a lot of ways. And if, that any business, you can read that book. It's a great book to think about taking ownership in your business, by Napoleon Hill. The second one, I read this recently, a couple summers ago, $1 Trillion Coach, which is a book about Bill Campbell, who was the coach at Apple, Google, Intuit, and some other places, where how to deal with people, how to deal with issues. It's, when you're a leader, there's a lot of shit that comes up, right? And it's just, how do you deal with it all? And a couple things that always stick in the back of my mind is when I read that book is if there's like an elephant in the room, like my goal was to go shoot the elephant and pin it on the wall so you can kind of move on. So that, like, stuff like that really helps. So those are my 2 leadership books, Think and Grow Rich and $1 Trillion Coach.
There's a lot of different ways I want to go here.
There's so many. I got a list of 10 books for each of these.
I know there's actually a lot of different ways I want to go, but I think the one that can be the most impactful for the most people would be Traction by Gino Wickman. I'm such a big believer in EOS. Both BAM and the real estate team are running off of EOS.
Game changing.
Yeah, it's game changing. If you're, a leader and you're feeling to some degree like you're floundering or you're unorganized, or you're not getting anything done in meetings, or you don't have a structure on how to set and accomplish goals, this book kind of packages it all together for you. So that'd be, I think, the most impactful to the most people. That's why I'm going to pick it and put it on the list.
All right. My last one is one that I've come back to. I've actually read it twice this year, as after having read it once in the past, is Predictable Success. And
I haven't read that.
I got 2 books to read here. This is great, by the way.
Dude, such a good one. It kind of talks through like the cycles of business. And as I've read it, every single time I've read it, I've been like, holy shit, that happened to me. Oops, sorry. Can't take the Boston out of the girl.
Well, I just said that I don't know what you're talking about. It's fine.
Okay. But like it talks about like going through the cycle of like the fun stage where money's coming in and everything seems great, and then the inevitable start of things starting to fall apart, and the whitewater phase of business where things get dicey because things have grown so fast and people need to change, and kind of help me understand that sometimes those that started with us aren't always going to be with us, but also understanding the psychology of it. And then talked about the treadmill phase, which is where it's easy to get stuck in a rut with business and leadership, and the importance of not allowing that to happen. And I actually felt myself slipping there at one point. So
Sounds like I need that book this year.
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite books. Yep. I will send you a copy. This is going to be my gift to you.
Well, thank you, Lisa.
Chopped
Yeah.
liver over here. Thanks.
Tom, I'll give you the hand me down when I'm
All
done.
right, good. That sounds great. Perfect. We can use it.
Tom
again.
can't read. He reads like a third grader, so I'm not going to send him a book.
Beep that one
Yeah.
out.
Can't read my ass. All right.
Beep that one out. Tom, you had a pick for worst book to stay away from, I guess.
Worst book to stay away from: Commission Impossible by the Broke Agent. That would be my kid uses it as a coloring book now. It's actually a very, very funny book. But if you want to be successful, don't follow anything in that book. Would be my advice.
Great pick. All right, Lisa, do you have a worst book? I don't know if I have a worst book.
No, because I tend to, once it not interests me, I shut it down. But I could go on. My list of books is actually, it's funny. When I first started coaching, I was like, I don't read books. I'm never going to read books. Don't tell me to read books. And
You've
now
told me that before.
I know. I'm probably one of the most voracious readers now. Like I always have a book.
Yeah. What are some of your honorable mentions that came really close? I'll give you one that I was really torn between with traction was Dare to Lead, Brene Brown. I think that can be impactful to a lot of people. And then Good to Great, Jim Collins was another one that I was.
That's excellent book. Excellent.
Yeah, that's a great book. I've listened to that I think 3 times.
I had Leaders Eat Last as another one of mine.
Also excellent.
Surrounded by Idiots is, I know I mentioned that, I think in a
last week.
It's the new name of the podcast.
Yeah, every time a miscommunication or misunderstanding, the root is there. What else did I have on my list?
Tom, what was an honorable mention for you?
I had 2, well, 3 really. The Millionaire Real Estate Agent by Gary Keller, and I would also kind of group Shift in with that as well right now. And I don't think it's anything crazy, but if you're looking to kind of dive in, it's an easy read to get started. A mindset one that really helped me a lot was The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F by Mark Manson. I think that really changed my approach on just dealing with clients and people. Because, I mean, in this business, you're going to deal with a lot of BS. And it's just being able to have a high tolerance for it allows you to be more successful. I talk about this with agents on our team all the time where they get upset when one person doesn't like them. I'm like, hey, try about 1,000 in the industry. Try about all the agents in the marketplace don't like you. And it's, and it's not that they don't like you, they don't know you, and they see you as this person. And I think that really helped me, especially like going after expired listings, right? I mean, this business is people take things personally all the time. So that was a really great one.
It's a great, I think, point to maybe end off on, what you're consuming. And I've got, Lisa was talking about that book about falling into a rut with the business. And I've caught myself a couple times this year with a mindset that doesn't support growth because of some of the struggles that we've all hit in 2023. And what you're feeding into your mind is so important. The agent that is not the knowledge broker who wants to just like take it easy, just stuff mail, is not go out and make the calls, not make the relationships in the community, not dig into the database, not do the real work that actually results in conversions, is unfortunately often the agent that has a lot of friends in their ear chirping them, about why would you do that? Why are you going to listen to this person? Take it easy. Or they also are consuming a lot of garbage on TikTok and other places that are telling them to, have a bare minimum Monday, or that the Sunday scaries are a real thing, as opposed to absorbing, content from people who have actually done what they're trying to achieve.
Love that. Great point.
All right, good. First ever book draft.
We'll have to do this again. I
Congratulations.
like this kind of stuff. I think this is fun. I think there's a lot of value there. I mean, I got a couple books I'm going to order when we get off this call, or this podcast.
Lisa, I love the studio. The what are those things called? The sand thing, the time.
It's an hourglass.
An hourglass.
Hourglass. There you go. The hourglass. So did somebody get you that purposely? Like, is there a reason why you need you gotta? Do they give you a certain amount of time to accomplish tasks?
I think Spencer thought it looked nice.
It does look very nice. The whole studio looks great.
What does the sign say?
Who the
bleep that out again. Lisa's on fire today.
Dude, it's so bad. Girls with big dreams become women with vision. Again, I can take zero credit for it. Spencer gets all the props.
Tom looking good over at the beach house.
Yeah, way to go, Tom.
Hey, Byron, Bobby slept in this room, so it's part of the BAM studio now.
No, I slept in the living room.
Oh.
I told everybody if you're going to try to sleep in the living room with me, my alarm's going off at 4:30 and you're going to have to deal with it. So they all slept in the bedrooms.
Yeah. I remember I got a picture from Eric and Dan, and they were in the bunk beds together, giggling like schoolgirls. So it was very funny.
They should be banned from the Jersey Shore for life. All right, guys, have a great weekend.